done. Redirecting to the live streaming page. Yeah. Ah, here it is. It's always searching how to start a live streaming on Google, but at one point I will learn, I guess. Okay. We're actually live. Good. All right. Good evening, all. So, who's here? We have Marco, Georgia, and Kenneth is here too. Hey, good evening, Kenneth. Jeff, Brendan, and Brandon. There's Kenneth.
Hi, guys.
Hey, hello. And there's Jeff. So a lot of new faces tonight because this is the first time we actually do it on the evening. As you can see, it's dark around me, so it's about 8 o'clock here. And this is the wash I haven't picked from my laundry stuff yet. So welcome to the FHIR.net API stand-up. Let me share my screen for a second. Or is it a good idea, because of so many new faces, that you guys do a short introduction? Maybe that's nice. Michael, do you mind starting?
No, I can go first. So I'm Michael Hansen. I'm with Microsoft, and I have a number of team members here with me today. So we've been using the .NET FHIR API for our FHIR server for Azure that is on GitHub, and so we want to get involved. Have been involved a little bit in the background, but this is our first chance to actually join this stand-up. So excited to be here.
Good. And Jeff.
Hi, yeah, I'm Jeff Danford. I'm with Allscripts here in the US. We've been using the .NET API probably for about 4 or 5 years with our FHIR API service that we're putting out with our EHRs.
And Brendan, okay. Do you'd like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I can jump in.
Hey.
Yep. So hi, my name's Brendan Coates. I work at Microsoft. Although today I'm at home as it's snowing a lot. Sorry, I also got a little 3-year-old that just had a hot chocolate. Yeah, so I work on the FHIR server at Microsoft, and really excited to be part of the community.
And we heard you're all snowed in.
Well, you know, snow in Redmond apparently is not snow as the same in other parts of the country, but to us it's pretty novel. So
yeah. And we have another Brendan Pollock. Want to introduce yourself, Brendan? Or no? Otherwise, I continue with Kenneth.
Yeah, Kenneth.
He says his mic isn't working.
Ah,
so.
yeah.
Okay.
Kenneth.
Kenneth Mira. I'm an independent software developer based in Norway. Currently working at the Norwegian Directorate of eHealth and also maintaining the Spark server.
Absolutely. Let's see. And Marco.
Yeah, hi there. My microphone didn't work, or my audio didn't work, so I'm now logged in by phone. Hopefully you can hear me. I don't know. Something is wrong with my internet connection at home. I don't know. But hi there. My name is Marco. I'm a software developer also on the .NET API team and also on the Fonk server, the FHIR server from FHIR.
Excellent. Who we have left? George.
Oh.
George, you're muted. No, unmute. We're not hearing you, George.
No?
Yeah, better.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the magic button?
Yeah. So I'm George. I joined the team on November. And since then, I've been working and playing around with the FHIR API.
Absolutely. So, and my name is Ewout. I started the .NET API and hope that we can share frustrations and good insights here on this call. That's what I'm spending my evenings on. So, welcome all. Well, let's grab the agenda for tonight. See if I can share that for you guys. So before we start, these sessions are actually recorded live on YouTube. So don't say anything you don't want to say live on YouTube. But it's nice that people who are not here can share in our discussions. So let me share my screen, or at least the agenda. There we go. So this is, this tonight's agenda. At least that's our plans for the agenda. So we go over our usual action items. We report on the R4 progress, and at least how to start working on isolating POCO, dependent and independent code, and some more items if we have time for it. Is there anything else we would like to put on the agenda for tonight?
Yeah, I put some also an item on the last item that was moving the API repo. That's mine.
Okay.
So I already altered the agenda.
Oh, very good.
Last week. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the last.
Maybe we should announce that or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll get to that point. That I think we'll have time left for that. Okay. First off, the action items then. Brian's not here, but
No.
So his action items, we wouldn't know the progress on, although I think we have already done it ourselves, cherry-picked the relevant things from the R4 PR into the STU2, Marco. I think we've actually done that.
Yes, we did. So I think we're almost done. There's only one item that's still left on my plate, but that's not so much work anymore. So I think we finally catched all.
Yeah, excellent. So the action items, I think, done in the R4 project by Marco and Ewout. I think good. We'll talk a little bit more about the action item R4. Actually, let's promote this to an agenda item. Especially now, our other big users are here on the call. Change the .NET API pipeline to build and test Vonk for each update of the API.
Yeah, well, we were so busy last week with the 1.12 release. I didn't have time to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe the Microsoft guys are here now, but I have a problem because we have a private pipeline of Vonk, and that has to be triggered by the other one. So that's the difficult part of it. But before this call, I had an idea just to periodically just check if there is a new version of the API and then build it. So maybe that's also a kind of a solution. So it's not triggered by something else, but we do it ourselves then.
All right, did you mention just press a button? Yeah. And I know, Michael, in your team, you were maybe interested in doing the same thing. So pulling the alphas and running unit tests. So we have a better set of tests for the .NET API before we go public with it.
Yeah, so I think Brendan has already set up some stuff so that this is not for the alpha releases, but we could, I suppose. Brendan, I don't know if you want to comment on the system that you set up for pulling the latest version and checking against our build system. He's on mute, but he may he may come online. So right now, what we're doing is we have a kind of a bot that just monitors all of our dependencies, and when there are upgrades to them, we basically automatically set up a PR and see if our stuff builds. But we don't do that with the alpha releases, right, Brendan?
That's correct. This is Brandon.
Hey, Brandon.
Hey. So could we do that?
We should be able to, as long as we can get access to the NuGets.
Yeah, the alphas are on the MyGet stream. I think we also sometimes mention it here, or I think we published that somewhere. I think on the FHIR chat. Ewout?
Yeah. We have it here and there. We have an alpha stream on MyGet. Yeah, that's right.
It's publicly available.
Okay. Yeah, we should be able to do it.
But how do you do that then? Because you use also Azure pipelines for this or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but to do the, Brendan can probably talk to this a little bit more, but we have a function, I believe, that goes out and checks for versions.
Okay.
Yeah. So it could be triggered by a new package on the NuGet feed.
What was that? Sorry. Yeah, we could set it up. The function can, we can feed in like a separate NuGet repository and package IDs and things like that. So we can set it up to do, like a bespoke feed and have a build that verifies this. I think we talked about this last time with you guys as well, but yeah, it's just a matter of time, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Can I still say Brendan is planning on doing the same? And maybe Marco, if you can't get it to work, maybe we can see.
Yeah, if that's okay with you, then because the only thing I have to know is the trigger. The whole pipeline I already set up, but something has to trigger it to fire it up.
Yeah.
And that the trigger is a new version in MyGet or NuGet. And I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, ours at the moment just does it. Sorry, on a scheduled function. That's all like. So it only just it just checks for updates like once a day.
Okay, that was what I also thought before we go into this. That we do it on a scheduled time. But we can do that. That's not so easy. No, not so difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, that's a good solution. Okay, I thought there was something else like a trigger. If something happens in NuGet, then you get notified by a webhook or whatever.
I mean, unless they've added that, I don't think there is a trigger in NuGet.
No, I haven't. I couldn't find it. So, but it's a good idea. I will try it.
All right.
Maybe tonight.
Yeah. Okay, next one. Brian will pull Web API into separate repo. I know he's going to do that. So for those unfamiliar with this, Brian Postlethwaite included a kind of a Web API layer in the .NET API, which is kind of the skeleton for setting up, for creating your own web server. But it's a little bit too much to have that in the API, so we want to have it as a separate thing. So Brian is gonna take that out of the repository, the .NET API repository, and have it into his own repo, so he can also maintain it on its own pace and time frame. The targeted meeting to discuss different interfaces for Web API have not done that yet. Schedule a meeting to show proposed change to the internals of the validator. Well, last time I'd already said we're going to delay that, so I'm going to put that as the last bullet because the validator is not, well, I'm going to work on that a little bit later during the year, so it's not much to report. And then the discussion on support for that .NET 4. Actually, so someone, let me show you that on the GitHub repo. Maybe you guys have seen it. We got a pull request to support .NET 4 by Luke Stratman. So he actually promised me he would be here on this call. And I don't think I've seen him dial in here. No. So we've discussed this a few times before. We have a pull request for .NET 4 compatibility. it's not a whole lot of lines of code because we already had the for capability at some point. So it's actually pretty small. See, he'll join the next stand-up to plead my case. We actually decided to not do that during the San Antonio meeting. Every platform you need to support is another platform you need to support. It's not free. And I haven't had a lot of love or traction or people dialing in that wanted to have .NET 4 support. So in San Antonio, we actually said, no, because also, the moment we add functionality and we add something that's not supported in 4, we have to think and decide on what to do with that. So it is an effort. So I don't know if anyone on this call has to say something against or for pulling this, but otherwise I'll tell Luke that I'll just close this one. No offense for .NET 4.
No
support.
offense.
Well,
It's quiet. I hear
it's
desert.
horribly quiet here. Create a ticket to discuss the permissive parsing. I did that, and there's a bullet point here. We'll just discuss it as part of the agenda. So that were the action items. Okay, R4 progress. Marco, do you want to pick that one up?
Yeah, we did a lot of effort last week to get our to get the 112 out, and also we had some work on the R4. We have the already out. I think there are some things that we did for the 112. We have to still port that to R4.
Mm-hmm.
That's a quite forward merge, not so difficult, I think. And there is one item that still is on my name. It's in the middle of processing, and if I haven't done with that, that could also be go to R4. It's only for R4, by the way. And yeah, I don't know what else. Do you have something for R4 as well, Ewout? Maybe the FHIR path?
So we can, there's a few aspects here. So we have an R4 alpha now. So that's usable, and I think it's actually been used at the Connectathon in San Antonio, and
not so quite so much. I have saw the MyCat downloads. It's on one hand you can count.
Yeah, there were a few people at the Connectathon downloading it and using it. So most prominently Brian Postlethwaite has used it. So we had a few bug reports on it, but mostly. This is actually waiting for the 1.2 release. So as Marco said, we had a few bug fixes on the 1.1 release. So as soon as we publish a 1.2, R4 will go out of alpha, and we'll have a 1.2 beta on our normal NuGet stream. So we'll probably get a little bit more exercise. But it's mostly complete. So we have, of course, the POCO classes are ready for R4. We have a working snapshot generator for R4, minus one minor feature for choice types as a new syntax introduced in R4, but that's not used a lot yet. So that's not not in anyone's way. The validator works for R4, and as Marco said, the only thing that's interesting now is the FHIR path support, because separate from the FHIR standard, actually FHIR path evolves separately in its own pace. So although R4 FHIR went normative, FHIR path is not yet normative. So there are still changes coming into the FHIR path syntax. So if you Google FHIR path normative, you can see there is in September there was a normative ballot. Can you please move this away? Oh, you can't see this, of course. I have to reshare my browser.
I see your browser. We see your browser.
Oh, of course, yeah. I shared.
Yeah.
That's fine. So this is normative Bella 2, and in fact, this isn't even the latest. If you go to the, there is a GitHub with the latest. It's still called Fluent Path for historical reasons. So if we Google GitHub Fluent Path, it's this one. You can see that the last commit 5 days ago. So it's still being worked on here. And so we have the situation where the where the final R4 has been published, but the FHIR syntax is still changing. So I have started to update our FHIR engine to the latest normative FHIR standard, but that is incompatible on some aspects with the stuff that's in R4. So this is interesting. If I would really push the work I've done on the FHIR engine, we will break the normative R4 edition. So it's, I'm granted the same. I will just add some backward compatibility stuff into it. So our FHIR engine actually will still support some obsolete features of FHIR, so we can at least still compile and interpret the DSU2, SU3, and R4 FHIR variants that are in the FHIR specification. So that work is not done yet, and to be perfectly honest, I think that I will only do that in 1.3. So I think we're going to release 1.2 with the FHIR pre-normative in the R4 release. So that's in the 1.2 release that's coming up. And I wait till the dust settles in the FHIR community there before I introduce the updated FHIR engine in 1.3.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm. So the 1.3 would be in like 5-6 weeks, right? Because we have this cycle of 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's about in about 6 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
It gives me a bit of time to chat with Bryn Rhodes and Graham Grief on FHIR. Actually, when I was updating the FHIR engine, I found quite a few errors still in the FHIR normative spec. So I'm pretty happy it hasn't gone normative yet. There are simply too many errors in it. The new FHIR is a major update because you'll be able to compare quantities. So you need to be able to say stuff like it's 1 kilogram smaller than 2,450 grams. So it's those kind of things that makes it quite a big upgrade as well. Additionally, I have revisited the setup of FHIR. I think we've been talking about this with a few of you about the performance of the FHIR engine, and I've started working on reviewing the internals too. So this, 1.3 at the earliest, maybe even later. But just as a heads up, also working. So FHIR normative, I think in 1.3 in about 6 weeks. Also working on the FHIR performance while I was looking at the upgrade on the engine FHIR performance. One of the reasons I was reviewing the FHIR engine is because some of the features added, like there is now, I think, an aggregate operation that actually has two lambda variables. So if you do aggregate in FHIR, you actually have a total and a current, I think, magic variable that you can use to some stuff. I had to change the engine to make that work. So I've been looking at the performance as well. All right.
Good. When are we going to release the 1.0 beta?
1.2 beta?
Yeah, sorry, 1.2 beta.
1.0 has been released.
Sorry.
Next week, Marco, because I know this is your Vonk week. You're on the other team now this week.
Yeah.
So I figured you could publish it next week.
Good. Okay. Is
that feasible, you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Depends a little bit on this discussion too. So in principle, next week. So that's 1.2 beta, and well, we already have the 1.12 final is now out. Okay. FHIR. Yep. Okay. So for the 1.2 release, there is something we still where I like to have your opinion on. It turned out that in 1.0 already validates more syntactic stuff in the when it parses than the pre 1.0 things did. So there's a few things, Marco, that you also encountered in Vonk, right? When you upgraded to the 1.1 release, that triggered validation mistakes. For example,
mistakes. Yeah, it's more strict.
It's just more strict. So the FHIR serialization says that you can't have an element like, let's say, birth date, which is impatient, and then where value is like something like this, or birth date. Sorry, still talking about FHIR in my mind. So patient. This is not correct according to the spec, and pre 1.x parsers totally ignored this, and the new one doesn't. So that means, strictly seen that on going to 1.x, we had an interface break, which is okay because it was a 1.x release, but it's something to keep in mind if you're going to 1.x. So I don't know whether you or anyone on this call encountered that too while upgrading to the 1.x version.
Silence there. Yeah, only in Vonk we had some problem.
Yeah, only. So Michael or Brendan, have you already upgraded to the 1.x, or what version are you using currently in your product?
So we're not 1.x. We're what 0.9 some 6.
Yeah, 9.6 I think.
Yeah. And we had a pull request up, right, with a bug that needed to be fixed.
Yep. It's been solved in 1.1.2.
Yeah, that's in 1.1.2.
Okay, it is in 1.1.2. So I guess we've been a little bit quite a lot busy, I should say, the last
with him, right?
A couple of weeks. We're trying to get something out the door here, so we haven't really done much on it, but I suspect once we get past this week and next, we'll be able to pick that up again and see if we can go to one, whatever that version would be at the time.
Yeah, so we pulled that pull request that you guys had here.
Okay. Hey, Brendan, were there any other problems?
Sorry, I just got kicked out of my space. No, that was one of the ones that was impacting like some of the tests. I think there might have been some like FHIR path issues, but I haven't had time to look into those. Either, but it might also be okay. We just need to update the packages and I guess rerun it and see how we go. But we definitely want to move on to it as soon as we can.
So Brendan, you you found that bug, so you did try the 1.x versions, right?
Yeah, so that was the automatic package update that pulled it in and ran all the tests, and that's how we initially found it. I started looking into that one error and I logged a bug for it, and then while I was debugging, I found the problem, so I just submitted the pull request to you.
Pull request.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So that's
so I suspect, but it's not just going to be there will be a few other little bits and pieces we have to take care of before we switch. But we may be. I think once we get past, I was going to say this week, but this week and next really, we should be able to start picking up our regular cadence on this. So we'll put it on our list of things to get done.
Yeah, so this is one thing. One of the things you'll encounter is that it's stricter in parsing, and so we have added. It was already there in the settings, a setting called permissive parsing, which will basically revert to the old behavior and allow anything that can be allowed without, as long as we can understand it. But it will allow mistakes in the XML. But this is pretty much so clear in the FHIR spec that you shouldn't do this or this. So I thought it was okay if that was mentioned. So For the 1.2 release, actually, we got a few bug reports that we still missed a few checks, and that was correct. So we've enabled them too, which means that the 1.2 release will actually complain even more. And for example, the 1.2 release will also validate the order of the elements. In XML, obviously, the order of elements is important. That wasn't validated yet. It's validated now. And so that means that in 1.2 you'll get even more parsing errors. So we have had some pushback, mainly from Brian Postlethwaite, who think that we should be able to switch that off. And now my question was actually whether we should look at having something maybe more granular, or we have basically on and off now with permissive parsing. But I could see where you'd say, well, I really want to hammer on that, those syntactic errors. But things like ordering, I don't mind so much. So you can let that slide through. I must say, when I start thinking about that, it's really hard to draw the line on where you'd say, this is what I want and this is what I don't want. So it would basically mean that you could switch on and off almost individually all these checks. Now, before I even start thinking about that, I love to hear some of your opinions about that.
Wouldn't it be nice to have a kind of an enumeration for that and just put something on and off? Or is that too much fine-grained?
It probably would be something like an enum, yeah.
With some flags,
I like empty value, yeah, or a bit enum, so you can combine.
Yeah,
them.
I mean
bit flag, probably a bit flag, empty values, XML order, JSON array. For example, JSON now still the parser would still allow you to do blah with a single element 4, even if this was an array. And in FHIR, it should then look like this. But if it's a single element, the parser would currently still accept it. So it's pretty lenient. So yeah, it would look something like this, I guess.
Yeah. Because I think for Vonk, we also want to do this, so have some settings that so that we can accommodate our customers with a special kind of parsing.
Kenneth, Jeff, or Brendan, or any comments on this?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Sorry.
Yes, I haven't thought much about it, but it seems nice to have.
Yeah, I feel like in like sort of the FHIR server part of it, there are cases where you do want to accept like a wide range of values and not have things error out. But it also makes sense to have that configurable if you sort of want the stricter, more fine-grained control as well.
Okay.
Well, in that case, if you do that, you can, I think, a whole array of customers, of wishes that you can point to, right? So it's if we want to have more fine-grained, then we can do that, and if somebody else doesn't want to, then they don't implement that. So
the next interesting question is what would be the default?
Yeah, that I was also thinking about. It must be very strict or not, right?
Yeah, so currently the default is permitting parts of is false, so it will trigger on everything.
Yeah. Well, if you don't do that, you don't know if there is something wrong with that. So if you do it the other way around, then you think everything is all right, but actually it isn't.
Yeah, which is the current situation, which is not good either.
Yeah, and yeah, I know. But if you have the possibility to change that with these kind of settings, then you can just tweak a bit with these settings just to have the right behavior.
Yeah, I guess if you sort of think about like HTML standards, they have like strict versus like transitional and stuff like that. So strict was the one that enforced all like the XML style validation. whereas transitional like basically allowed a lot more things. So I think it just depends on the kind of behavior that you want. And I feel like, we probably can't make that choice for a lot of our customers.
No,
Exactly.
I think so too. But would you feel comfortable with that by default most validations are on, and you actually have to switch them on, off, or you think that it should accept almost everything, and you have to switch stuff on for it to trigger on errors?
Yeah, I'd say strict is probably a good default behavior if it can always be
me too.
overridden. I mean, it's probably always better to try to be, more compliant. But if you have data that requires like something that needs, a more lax validation, then you can always, override back to that.
Yeah, the FHIR standard says this strict behavior, right? So I think we have to follow that. And if you want to be more lenient, then you have to set those settings.
Yep.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, we'll think about a nice way to do this next week then, and see if we can get it into the 1.2 release, which I think we need to, because the 1.2 release is again really stricter than 1.1. So this might be really important maybe for us to get this done in the 1.2 time frame, if it's possible. Yeah. All right. Next up, isolating POCO-dependent code. We've been discussing this in this call for a few times. Basically, what we have now are 3 copies of the FHIR API, the DSU2, SU3, and R4. Are almost entirely, well, no, that's not completely true. The core assemblies and the specification assemblies are complete copies, and the support FHIR path, serialization, and element model libraries are not POCO dependent. So these are actually shared code, but the whole core assembly and specification, it exists ×3. So and it's not always something you can do about, because the C# classes, for example, they get generated from the spec, and if there's a new class or something changes, you have a new C# class. So that's not, there will always be classes specific to a DSTU release. But currently, these libraries are really copies, even for stuff that could be shared. We realized that for a long time, but didn't really know what to do about it. And so I asked Georgia here also on this call to take a look at that and see if we could improve. Is George still on the call, by the way?
Yes, yeah.
Ah, okay. I don't see your image here anymore in my control panel, but if you're still here, that's good. So George, do you mind showing? Shall I give you the screen so you can tell us what you've done?
Yeah, sure.
Let's see. Well, actually, I think you can share too. Maybe I should unshare. Okay. Now you should be okay to grab the screen there, George.
Okay. Let me see which window it is.
Yeah, it's that green share button.
The green button.
Yeah.
No, what window I should share? Okay. Okay, can you see it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Um,
I must say it's actually sharper than during our Skype sessions. This is really good.
okay. Well, usually when I'm sharing on Skype, I have 2 monitors, so I'm sharing the other one.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I've done so far is to move out from the core assembly everything that is not version specific. I've created a common project, and I've moved out almost everything except the model and the rest folders. From model, I've managed to take out a lot of the classes, even if they were generated. I've discussed with Ewout about this, and he said that it's okay to take them out and then check what has changed on the way. What's the difference between DSTU2 and R4, for example? So if we can have a common base between the versions, we could accept the last version of it. Even if some features won't be usable in the previous versions, the developers will kind of see some properties or methods in the interfaces, but they will not be able to use them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So George, I remember that as we said, okay, let's take out just base and an element, and then oh, maybe try resource. And then with resource, of course, came all the data types. And then I said, well, the data types are normative, so we can just maybe use them across all the versions. Well, I still have to double check, but we both think that it's probably possible.
But the normative doesn't mean that it doesn't go to change anymore, right?
Right.
It can also be something added to it.
Stuff can be added to it. Yeah. And so, as Georgia just said, what is then going to happen is that if you have a shared base with the data types, even if you're in DSTU2, you'll see elements that are actually only correct, say, starting from R6.
Yeah.
So that's the possible disadvantage. I don't think they will change a lot anymore, by the way, but
I don't think so.
These are the data types after all. I mean, the resources will change, but the data types, I don't think so much. And maybe, but that's, I think both George and I are really interested in discussing that. We thought about putting just clearly in documentation, this property is only valid in DSTU5 and later. And maybe we can pull the same trick as Visual Studio does when it shows, right, that some function is not available in Net Standard 1.1, but it is in Net Standard 2.0. That would be lovely if we could do something like that. I have no idea how to do that, but maybe we could do that.
Yeah, I'm facing that issue right now, but I will get there.
Yeah.
Okay, and so moving out stuff from the core assembly to the common. By mistake, I've moved out the Poco builder and everything related to it. But after a few seconds, Ewout said, well, it's not really a bad idea. And then we started to look into what should have changed, what we should change in the Poco so it will work as a shared base. And it came out that there are not many things to be changed, but it's a bit of work there, because at the lowest level, the Poco builder needs the resources, and the resources, we cannot take them out from the core assembly. So somehow we have to pass the core assembly to the common assembly, so it will take out its resources. And with that, I'm stuck right now. I mean, that's what I'm working on right now.
Yeah. There's a few bits and pieces there, right? There's quite some places where we use model info,
Yeah.
For example, to map the name we encounter in the serialization. Of course, somewhere it will say patient, and we need to map that to the C# class. So the POCO builder, when it parses POCOs, actually it knows how to to create a patient and actually create an instance of that C# class. Obviously, if you're only using element model and the I typed element, this is all you don't need this. This is really about the POCO serialization and the POCO parsing. So as George now showing, doing kind of reflection to make that work.
For example, in this case, instead of using the model info and what it provided, we are using the base FHIR parser inspector, and we are using the class mappings. But class mappings needs the resources.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Probably means, George, I think that in the end, in some point during initialization or app.config or whatever, you have to point to the assembly that, or a few assemblies that actually contain the compiled C# classes, so the POCO builder can find them and can connect the string with the data type with the actual C# class. Most of the code was already there. I mean, the POCO builder already did most of this, but it was hardwired to a single assembly. And if we're going to share this across multiple assemblies, we need some variability there. Yep.
Yeah, and I've tried to give the assembly somehow to the value factory, the method that extracts the resources. But as you said in the beginning, I have some issues with the platforms, with the .NET 4.6 and .NET Standard 1 and .NET Standards 2.
Yeah.
Because I didn't find a common package or a common class that let me access the assembly.
Well, yeah, the reflection is the most variable bit of our code base. It's probably the only. We have a reflection helper class with lots of if-defs to make this work across the different platforms. There's a bit of variability there. Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought I can find a nice and simple solution.
Yeah.
Something more straightforward.
Well, we'll find a solution for that, I guess. So what do you guys think? Is this interesting to pursue?
It could be. You'll need to load the core assembly from you using a reflection, and then you have to point to the either DSTU2 or STU3 or R4.
Yeah, and it, if we could simplify and say there is only one such assembly, you could look in the same, I don't know, same directories where this assembly is or something, we along that. But if we could make that work, it means that we have a much larger shared code base, which makes pull request and maintenance also much simpler. And also, if you want to support multiple DSTUs, maybe we could actually even make that work a little bit more simple than what we do now.
Yeah. So what would be the problem with having all the models in, say one assembly?
Well, yeah, the only problem with that is that we need to change the namespaces.
Right. So have you guys heard of, where is this company? Care Evolution?
Yeah, sure. Michel Mottini. Yeah.
Yeah. So have you seen his code base? It looks like he's modified your FHIR.NET API to do all of that.
Yeah, we talk a lot. We know him. We know him pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah. So part of this got started by him.
Right.
But his solution isn't one that we completely like Pursue, because what he does is he generates. What he did when he did this initially is he compared the STU2 to STU3.
Yeah.
Sorry. And classes that did not change, he put into a common namespace. And classes that did change, he put in a 2 or a 3 namespace. And we said, well, that's not future-proof, because if you decided based on these 2 versions that resource X hasn't changed, but it changes in 4, boom, there you go, because you have to move it in a 4 namespace, and you have to remove it from an old namespace, and you break backwards compatibility. So if we would ever do that, I guess we would have to just give all the classes the same or a different namespace. So you get a patient R4 and a patient R5, and so on and so on.
Yeah, it'd just be duplicating, I guess, a lot of the time.
Yeah, you would, and you could have the same discussions that we just had with the data types. If you're looking at moving forward. So if an R6 patient, because patient is now normative, an R5 or an R6 patient actually just adds stuff. Well, that's what it's supposed to only do. So you could say, yeah, so it only means that if you are with an earlier version and you use IntelliSense, you see members that you cannot actually use in 3 or 4. But we have to find a solution for that somehow. Well, I must say that I'm not completely confident that what an international standards committee finds backwards compatible is also backwards compatible for C# source code. So I think they'll find it perfectly okay to maybe change enums, but that would be definitely a breaking change for us. One of the most famous examples, I think, is that they don't think it's incompatible when a field now has a cardinality of 1 to 1, and it goes to 1 to many. But for us, we change from a single element to a list, which is a breaking change for the API. So we might be able to find ways around that, but it's not trivial.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, well, thanks for catching us up, I guess.
Yeah, but there have been multiple questions on should we just have the Java version, for example. Happy actually does that. So they have they just generate classes for everything, for every version. So in the package comes 3, 4, and 5 with separate namespaces.
Right, but even if they were in separate assemblies, yeah, it can still be a separate namespace.
Yeah, we've said so far, C# has a built-in solution for that, which is the alias, the external alias, right? So that's how we did it. But it's not fully supported currently by the core tools. You can't set an alias on the core tools. There's a hack you can, of course, add. You can add a build step that actually solves that problem. So that's what we've done. So that's why we haven't done it yet.
Cool.
But this will help a lot since if for example, if resource is a shared class between assemblies, we can just have one library that works with resources in general, like all our resolvers currently return resource, and just having that once instead of 3 times and maintaining pull requests across 3 branches would actually make our lives a lot easier.
Yes,
and,
if resource was shared, that would be amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what we're trying to do. So I guess we continue in this way and see what we encounter on our journey separating these things out. And if anyone here has working knowledge on how we could get these kind of the warnings that Visual Studio has on you cannot use it in Net Standard 1, if we could do something like that with DSTU platforms, that would be wonderful. I'm pretty sure you can expand the compiler now. I've seen the XUnit do it with all kinds of warnings about use and misuse of the API. So there must be something there.
Right. Yeah. No, we'd have to dig that up, I think.
Yeah, we have to dig that up. Well, maybe Georgia, this is something for us to take a look at if we can do that.
Yeah.
Can I take your screen, George?
Sure, sure.
Okay. So where are we? That was how to start working on isolating Pogo independent code. So I'll just type a summary of George's stuff here once this call is over for the minutes. And then Marco, we have 5 minutes or to the end of this call, and so I'll promote your bullet to about now.
That's nice. That's nice. We have the FHIR API is on your name on GitHub, about Kramer repository. And we want to move that to the FHIR team repository because we have, our company has a lot of repositories, open source repositories, but only not this one. And we did some tests, my colleague Rashid, we did some tests just to move it, and it went very well, I have to say. All the tests went perfectly well. So GitHub had this function that you can move the repository to another repository team, and all the links, the old links, still working because it's kind of the redirect to the new one. So because we are a bit afraid that all the links were broken, but they aren't. So actually, we can do that very silently and change it, but maybe it's better to announce it so that people know that we changed the repository to a new location, and just have a kind of a deadline, or maybe in 2 weeks or 1 month that we are doing, so that everybody can be prepared. So it's a really administrative kind of thing, but I just want to mention it here so everybody knows it already in this group, and hopefully we can pull this off in maybe 1 month time.
Yeah, it forwards everything, including the wiki links. So
including everything, yeah. Also, when you are in the middle of a pull request, even that, then are your So if we forked it, and we made pull requests, and I didn't have to change my client, my Git client to the new repository because it forwards everything. So that's really nice feature of GitHub, what they did there. Of course, all our public links will be going to change, but people who are linked to us will be forwarded. So also these things still there, issues. Yeah.
Right.
So just an announcement. I think this is what my talk was about. So maybe we should have what should we do? Should we do that in 1 month or? About a few weeks is also good.
Just about a month. Let's say about a month. We'll start forwarding. About Kramer to FHIR team, right?
Yeah, FHIR team. Yeah.
FHIR team. GitHub has functions. It's infinitely. It's forwarding that for until the end of time. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they say. Yeah.
Until eternity, yeah. And they're currently doing that until eternity. Let's say it that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. I think that's all for today then, because I have to switch over to another meeting in about a minute. The FHIR call, for those interested, HL7 call, the FHIR infrastructure call is in about 1 minute. And so our next meeting is in 2 weeks from now, but that's at 10 Zulu in the morning. So that is 4 Eastern, I think. It's 11 our time, 5 Eastern. So 5 Eastern, 3 o'clock where you guys are, I think then, that means. So that's going to be a bit hard.
We're also going to be at HIMSS. So.
And it's 2 weeks is HIMSS as well? Okay. Good. So
Is it
that's,
not next week?
You're not going to
Oh.
get a lot of North American participants anyway. So it's,
that's good. That's good then. So
Yeah,
that also
good.
means that in 1 month from now, we'll be having a call at exactly this same moment.
Okay, perfect.
It was nice to see that we had so many participants, by the way.
Yeah.
So we never had
That's
that so much people.
No. So move to the US time frame did work at least for you guys to.
Maybe
Yeah.
we can just have a random schedule. It just picks a random time of day. It's going to suck for somebody and not for
Yeah,
somebody
that's
else.
right. That's right. So that's why we're
So
gonna.
Brian is already angry because he's not here.
Yeah. Yeah, we will alternate. So keep on alternating for the foreseeable future. So everyone gets a chance to join this call now and then. So I hope you found it
Perfect.
useful. I enjoyed you having here, and see you
All
in a
right.
month.
Great. Talk to you later.
Okay.
All right.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank you. Goodbye.